The fantasy revolves around this man, Rocco Martino, who over the years had had dealings with the Italian and other intelligence agencies. In this surveillance picture, he's meeting an intelligence officer.
He liked to be a charming man. He was very mysterious, and there was something shadowy around him, a part of it.
Rocco Martino gave Elisabetta Berber a set of documents, which she later gave to the American embassy.
Potentially they were the smoking gun that everybody in that time was looking for.
It's a murky story. What is clear is that Rocco Martino got the documents from the embassy of Niger in Rome, and an Italian intelligence officer was involved at some stage. The sensational documents detailed how Iraq was planning to buy 500 tons of pure uranium from Niger, and were signed and sealed by the president of Niger. The documents looked authentic, and they even included the original genuine letter. But on a closer examination, they soon turned out to be a crude forgery.
So they were filled with all kinds of mistakes and holes, and they used the name of a previous Minister of Foreign Affairs, a Minister of Foreign Affairs from a previous regime. The seals of the Nigerian government were all hand-drawn. So it was a pretty bad forgery.
Earlier on, Martino had tried to sell the documents to French intelligence, but they refused to take the bait.
We were highly skeptical. We didn't even mention them to any friendly services. And most important of all, we didn't trace any acquisition of uranium by Iraq during the whole period.
French intelligence officers were twice dispatched to Niger's uranium mines to check it out. They reported there was nothing to it. Brochon likens the spread of the documents to a contagion.
It was disseminated to some intelligence services, including France, Germany, UK. Then it crossed the Atlantic, and in the end, only the US and the UK made that public, because probably their immune system was weaker.
The White House eagerly seized on the intelligence. Once again, it was exactly what they wanted to hear. The CIA had its reservations, but the Niger story just kept on turning up.
My agency tried repeatedly to bang down that whole issue over and over and over again, but it just, one of my colleagues referred to it as whack-a-mole. You'd hit it over the head and it would go away, and then it would pop back up again at another spot.
We contacted Rocco Martino via his family, but they said he was too ill to do an interview or comment. He's always denied knowing the documents were forgeries. The exact role of Italian intelligence in this story is unclear, but they deny any involvement. The journalist who inadvertently fueled the circulation of the forgeries feels guilty.
Personally, I feel very bad because I have been used to justify a war which ended up with thousands or hundreds of thousands of deaths.
MI6 stood by the Niger story, not based on the forged documents, but on British intelligence, including eavesdropping from here at GCHQ. The current British inquiry into the intelligence failings, chaired by Sir John Chilcot, is now into its 4th year. Behind its closed doors, one senior MI6 officer was distinctly underwhelmed by the intelligence on Niger.
The Niger uranium thing was pretty unfortunate, really. If desk officers in the service had had their way, probably would never have seen the light of day.
The late Brian Jones, who was head of the WMD section at Defence Intelligence, was equally dismissive.
There was no suggestion in intelligence that Saddam was close to having a nuclear weapon. Although we knew that he'd sought nuclear weapons, there was never any suggestion that he had acquired them, or indeed was very close to acquiring them.
Saddam's alleged attempt to buy uranium from Niger remained on intelligence files in Washington and London, just like curveballs and Major Hariths. Now the spies who fooled the world had sowed the seeds for the biggest intelligence failure in living memory. Politically, events were now moving fast. 11 months before the war, Tony Blair met President Bush at his ranch in Crawford, Texas. Blair agreed to support regime change, but only if the UN route had been exhausted. Sir Richard Dearlove, the head of MI6, briefed the Prime Minister on his visit to Washington in July. He's reported as saying,
military action was now seen as inevitable. The intelligence and facts were being fixed around the policy.
In our view, we thought that intelligence was used to justify a war which was a war of choice, of pure choice. But the intelligence was used to disguise that as a war of necessity.
Tony Blair's Chief of Staff, Jonathan Powell, had warned that public opinion was fragile, and the government now needed a Rolls-Royce information campaign. A last call went out for any further intelligence that could be presented in a dossier designed to be made public. With the publication deadline approaching, 3 pieces of crucial new intelligence came into MI6. Uncertainty became certainty. Saddam Hussein was now judged to have active chemical and biological weapons. The most dramatic new intelligence was the warning that the WMD could be launched within 45 minutes.
He has existing and active military plans for the use of chemical and biological weapons, which could be activated within 45 minutes.
So where did this intelligence come from? We've established that it is likely to have been conveyed by the exiled Iraqi opposition group, the INA, based in Jordan. Its founder headed a military committee with secret cells of dissident army officers inside Iraq.
This was all based on very tight-knit connections through relatives to avoid the security of Saddam. And we had cells in various units, and information used to be passed to us.
Dr. Alawi's group was first told about the 45-minute warning when it was planning a coup in the mid-90s and feared Saddam would use WMD against defecting soldiers. The warning came from an Iraqi colonel called Al-Daba, an artillery commander in Iraq's western desert. What was the intelligence?
That they are ready to within 45 minutes, to hit any defection, any unit that will defect.
With what?
With chemical weapons.
Did Colonel Al-Daba say that he'd seen the weapons?
No.